You, Chip.
Well, thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be here today. And we all know these gentlemen for the cars that they're building and that they've got here today. But I'd like to start with an interesting question. I'd like to know, what was your very first car?
First road car? Yeah? Well, mine was an incredibly boring car. I grew up in South Africa in the 50s, and I got my license, I think, about 61. And I lusted after a little Austin Healey Strike. I think you call it the bug eye over here, we call it the frog eye. But even second hand, it was still about 300 pounds. My dad said, if you get one of those, think again. So I ended up with a 56 Hillman Minx, which is probably the most boring saloon car on the planet.
La mia prima macchina è stata una macchina che mi sono costruito da solo perché costava molto una macchina, allora comprai una vecchia Renault Gordini da un demolitore, poi mi sono fatto questa macchina in vetroresina, qui ci ho fatto anche 35.000 km sopra, avevo 17 anni.
So at 17 years old, he didn't have the money to buy a car, so he got an old Renault Gordini from a scrapyard, and he made carbon fiber, the body in glass fiber around it, and he drove 35,000 kilometers in that car.
Fantastic.
I started driving when I was about 12, and my first modes of transportation were on a couple motorcycles. Had a pretty gnarly little motorcycle crash. I thought maybe 4 wheels is a little safer than 2, and so my first car that I bought when I was 16, bought with my own money, and it was a 1969 Oldsmobile 442 convertible, 3 in the tree, and back in the day I terrorized Kansas City, Missouri every chance I could with that car, so good times.
That's fantastic. Now I want to know, what was the very first car that inspired you all to do what you do today?
I like that. I'd like to go first if I could. McLaren F1. That's all I have to say. Whatever gets going.
For me, it was something a little bit more normal, should we say. Growing up, Colin Chapman was my hero, a Lotus designer, absolutely my hero. I loved all the racing cars and the road cars. And when the Lotus Elan came out, I just couldn't wait to get a second-hand one. And one day, when I got to England in '69, one day I got to own a Lotus Elan, and to this day, it's still the best steering of any motor car I've ever driven, and I've got 2 of them now, and I'm out in it. I did a rally in it last weekend. It's a fantastic little motor car.
A me mi hanno ispirato sempre molto, io ho sempre amato l'automobile fin da bambino, amavo il design, le macchine che venivano disegnate a Torino da Pininfarina, da Bertone, da Ghia. La macchina che mi ha colpito di più, avevo forse 12-13 anni, è stata la Bertone Caravo, che era una macchina con motore Alfa Romeo, ed è quella che mi ha veramente affascinato tanto. Poi tutte le macchine, anche Jaguar, eccetera, eccetera. Però quella è stata quella che mi faceva svegliare di notte per guardarla la foto.
So obviously he loved cars since he was a kid, and maybe one of the cars out of the touring era of coach builders back in the days, he remembers he had maybe 12 years, was the Bertone Carabo with an Alfa Romeo engine. That was probably the car that inspired him most, but there were many others that he could mention, Jaguars and other cars as well.
One other 2.0 answer to my question, or the question, was the other car that inspired me right after the F1, and this was a few years before, was the Porsche 959. So back in the 80s, I'm a big fan of the groovy rally cars, the Killer Bees, watching the guys race at Pikes Peak. And I just remember thinking, man, the 959 would be such a cool car, such high tech. And a few years later, I thought, what car can I modify to build my own poor man's version of a 959? That was the Mitsubishi 3000 GT DR4. I raced at Pikes Peak, I raced at Bonneville. I did a couple races in Nevada called the Silver State Classic and won one of those races. And I learned the first rule of car racing. And that is, if you want to make a small fortune in car racing, you start with a larger fortune, which then led me to start my business right after I got married. And here we are 31 years later.
Congratulations. Now, in your minds, when you're designing a car, what makes a car collectible?
I think, well, we're very unusual as a car company. I have no interest at all in performance figures, 0 to 60, 0 to 100. When I did the McLaren F1, I had absolutely zero performance targets. It just happened to do 240 miles an hour, so almost an accident at the time. And it's the same with all our cars. Our motto is driving perfection, and it's a bit like the Lotus Elan again. Lightweight, all the basics right, and the best ever driving experience. So, I mean, that's when I start designing a car. It's all about, I put myself in the owner's and the pilot's seat, if you like. It's all about the driving experience. You won't find anything on our cars that has no function.
What makes a car collectible in your mind?
Diciamo, ci deve essere una storia dietro. Ad esempio di Gordon con la F1 c'era una storia, ad esempio perché l'ha fatta lui che era un grande, uno dei migliori progettisti al mondo di macchine da corsa. Perciò era importante vedere la sua macchina, perché aveva un brand come McLaren, che era un brand importante, e perché poi non sono state fatte tante, ha vinto Le Mans, eccetera. Perciò ad esempio questo è un tipico esempio che fa una macchina collezionabile.
One thing that is important is there must be a story behind the project, and Horacio just said, just take the McLaren F1. I mean, you have one of the greatest minds ever in the car industry to build such a car, to develop it, to think about it. You have obviously an iconic brand with McLaren that makes the car, and there's obviously only a finite amount of these around, right? So that is a very good recipe for making it something that is collectible. And it won Le Mans. I mean, it's
Actually, sorry, that's true. It's not. It's obviously not just about the driving. It's about volumes as well. And his ratio is absolutely right. You know, the fact that the McLaren went out and won Le Mans, I think, really projected it forward.
I agree completely with both these gentlemen that I think it starts with the story. You know, if it starts with the story with the guy named Carroll Shelby that thought when he partnered with Ford that he could beat Ferrari back in the day. And again, but those cars back in the, you know, even into the 70s, those were $5,000 cars. And now, again, just look at the GTO. And again, Bruce Meyer's got a great story about a GTO way back when he could have bought for $5,000. And I think, again, if you take a car that at one point in time it has this story, and if it does something historic within racing, that's even better. But the story, and I think again, like for our company, our brand, and I know I shared this with Horacio and probably also with Gordon, it starts with our family and the passion and our family coming together and working together and sweating together and obsessing over building these cars. I don't know what the value of our car is going to be to make it collectible further on down the road. Obviously, it's small volume. And if somewhere along the way we can do something significant. By the way, I saw one of your cars run 223. I was standing on the side of a test track with Road and Track back in the 90s. I'll never forget that. But I think those little type of things, but while we're building these cars, we're just trying to build one great, amazing car to please our clients one at a time. And you know, 25 or 30 or 50 years down the road, we'll see how that plays out. But it's just fun to be a part of the process and share that passion with our family and our clients and our employees.
What drives you every day to get up and go to work?
5 kids and a wife. The kids are grown now, and we've only got one tuition payment left. So I don't know. Seriously, I mean, yes, of course, that's part of it. Everybody here shares that as well. But I think that it started off with just a passion and a desire to want to build something fast and something that's fun, something that's unique that our customers enjoy. And I think now 30 plus years of modifying, we've modified over 14,000 vehicles during that time. And I see our almost 100 employees, and I see their families and their growing families. So really it's for those folks. And then again, it's just awesome to be able to come share something unique and different, and certainly to get a chance to go out and let it rip and hear a V12 at 12,000 RPM, I'm sure that excites you. And hearing a twin turbo V8, you know, singing at 8,500 RPM and going some crazy speed is it just the thrill of the drive that never gets old for me.
Sorry, it was what gets you up in the morning, was it? I missed the question.
Yes, what gets you up, and what is your drive every day?
Well, at the moment it's the business, but actually it's the ethos behind the business. So, you know, I work, if I start work at 6 o'clock every morning, I do 12, 13 hours. If you told me 20 years ago when I was 76 I'd still be doing that, I wouldn't have believed you, but here I am. And it's a drive to be better, always, and innovate more. And Formula One teaches you that. I was 20 years in Formula One, second place doesn't count. And that's still what makes me get up. We want to do stuff better than anybody else.
That's fantastic.
Come io abito a 2 miglia dalla fabbrica, vado a lavorare o a piedi con delle scarpette comode o in bicicletta, estate, inverno. Questo è il mio mezzo di trasporto, quello con cui faccio più chilometri. La forza che motiva noi, la benzina che accumula, credo tutto è la passione. La passione è quello che ti accende il cuore, la testa, il cervello e che ti dice ehi vai avanti.
So it's really the passion passion for the work, passion for also to drive something ahead, drive a business, a family of employees and everything. There's so much that plays into it, and every day he lives 2 miles basically from the factory. So he says every day he gets up and he either walks there on foot or he rides a bicycle, which might be the one mean of transport in the Pagani family with the highest. And you can ask him
Fantastic. I have one last question to ask. All of us have fabulous customers that we work with, but I'd like to know about your favorite customer and what project you did for them.
Just off the top of my head, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith was a wonderful guy to deal with, and we're still friends to this day. And he's the same guy all the time, and he's funny, and he's super talented, and I could list many others, but again, I think the guys that just that we feel like they're a part of our family, like we want to have dinner with them and spend time with them and go on drives with them, and we have a mutual client, Eddie, and just guys like that just again outside of the business, away from the car, these are people we want to spend time with, and they're like part of our family.
Yeah, very similar answer. The overall answer anyway is I like all our customers. We seem to be attracting a very different type of supercar buyer, people that want to use the car and buy it for the right reason. So I love all of those, but I have one funny story with a specific customer on the F1. George Harrison from the Beatles was a dear friend of mine, my best friend in fact, for 25 years. And I told him we were doing the F1 and he didn't mention anything about buying one. And about 9 months into the program, when a lot of them were sold, he said, "Are you going to sell me one of your cars?" And I said, "Well, I didn't want to be rude, you didn't say anything." And he said, "If I brought out a new album, a new CD, you'd buy it, wouldn't you?"
Allora, parlare del miglior cliente è difficile, ogni cliente nostro è una storia perché facciamo dei vestiti su misura, abbiamo dei clienti che comprano tutte le macchine che facciamo, per arrivare anche a 15 macchine, però la persona che ricordo con più affetto oggi non c'è più, si chiamava Benny Caiola ed è stato il primo cliente Pagani, cioè la prima persona che è venuta e mi ha voluto dare un assegno per comprare la macchina. Io non l'ho accettato perché ancora la macchina non era pronta per essere consegnata, e da lì si è creata una storia molto bella di amicizia. Ho imparato moltissimo con quella persona e ha comprato 4 delle nostre macchine, e poi la cosa bella è che i figli hanno continuato a comprare. Infatti la macchina che oggi abbiamo esibito là sopra è di Benny Caiola Jr., che è appunto il figlio di questo grande maestro.
So it's difficult to talk about your, let's say, favorite customer, the one customer. They are all individuals that have their very bespoke story of how they came to be, and similarly the cars themselves that they buy are unique. But if he has to mention one, maybe it would be Benny Caiola. Benny Caiola was the first Pagani customer. He happened to see the cars during one of his visits in Maranello. He happened to see a Zonda flying past. It was a prototype, and he followed the car, approached Horacio and said, "I'll write you a check for the car." And Horacio said, "I'm sorry, but the car isn't finished yet." So, but he ended up buying the car in the end, and other 3 Paganis unfortunately passed away. But the positive thing is that his memory lives on, his spirit lives on through his sons, who are carrying forward the legacy. And one of the vehicles that we've heard today is actually from the family.
Fantastic. You know, I've been lucky and blessed to have had some great customers myself, and not only do we build a car for them, but we build a friendship that lasts a lifetime. And it's really been an honor to be up here with all of you, and I hope you all enjoyed this. I've been told to wrap it up. I could stay up here for a couple hours asking you all questions, but truly an honor for me to be here with all of you. Thank you.